Last Sunday we celebrated Mothering Sunday with all the usual daffodils and family narrative that you expect. There is, we are told, a religious narrative behind the day, something about returning to the Mother Church in the region. I've never been terribly convinced by this, and even if it is based on fact in some way, it doesn't seem very relevant to us in 2022. This is a day which has been hijacked by someone, either taken from the church by secular society, and the makers of greeting cards, of course, or taken from secular society by the church. It is not the only such day in the church's year. Valentine's Day is another good example, where there is the hint of a religious history which is seen only in the vague memory that St. Valentine was a 3rd century Christian martyr. The rest of the way in which the day is celebrated doesn't seem particularly religious or spiritual at all. And now let me be really controversial and say that Christmas and Easter are beginning to fall into this category as well. There are more people who exchange cards and gifts at Christmas and eat and drink far too much than there are people who go to church at Christmas. Similarly, the profusion of Easter eggs has more to do with a chocolate-laden spring holiday than resurrection. Our Christmas and Easter feasts which have been hijacked by secularism, or, and this is the controversial bit, has the way in which the church celebrates Christmas and Easter in fact begun to resemble the secular pattern? There are, I suspect, many churches where you could turn up on Christmas Day and get more about presents than about the profundity of the Incarnation in an interactive family-friendly sermon. There is plenty here for us to fulminate against, but I also wonder whose narrative we are choosing to follow, and, perhaps more importantly, why they have diverged over the years. People celebrate Christmas and Easter, even if they don't go to church, because they enjoy what those feasts have to offer. They like presents and family time and chocolate. We all do. Those of us who go to church still do all of the same things, but we've been to church first. I can't, though, claim that I'm thinking profound thoughts about either incarnation or resurrection when I indulge in the secular parts of those feasts. I think, therefore, that they must be entirely separate. Those churches which deliver their family-friendly Christmas sermons about presents are valiantly trying to bring together two things which are no longer related, just as the audience will probably head home and try and unite members of a family who are no longer as close as they once were. Family arguments at Christmas are, I gather, as traditional as roast turkey, although I ought to add that I have not had either on Christmas Day. There might be more integrity in not trying to unite the religious and secular at points. We should not indulge in the self-righteousness of saying that you haven't earned the right for Christmas and Easter celebrations if you haven't been to church first. Instead, we should see the opportunity to go to church and understand the significance of these feasts as a privilege. It is a privilege which is available to all, but which not everyone takes up. I just wonder whether the church weakens itself when it tries to conflate these different celebrations. The church is stronger when it proclaims its message boldly and without embarrassment. That is not to say that we shouldn't keep Mothering Sunday in church, but we should be honest with ourselves that there is little spiritual enlightenment on offer. At Easter, I shall be quite happy to come home from the powerful experience of the Triduum, the holy 3 days from Maundy Thursday through to Easter Sunday, to a feast of roast lamb and a glass or 3 of wine. Each can be enjoyed separately, and most importantly, neither of them diminishes the other. So let's enjoy these feasts both in church and at home. If we measure the church feast against the secular celebration, then I'm afraid that we shall be disappointed. The climax of the Easter celebrations in church far outweigh the joy of chocolate. Every family has its own narrative of these feasts, their own memories of Christmas past, and their own hopes for the future. We don't need to hijack everyone's own Christmas and Easter and use them to try and define our Christian festivals. Instead, let us use the festivals to proclaim our own narrative, which is of God being born as one of us and breaking the bonds of death and setting us free.